Jodi Arias,
Yeah.
who was definitely psychologically warped, right?
Hmm.
And a completely different world from the kind of people you've been mentioning there, right? She had a lot of damage going on, definitely in her past, I would say, right? That led her to
Yeah.
be not as perfect as she might want to be, right? But
Hmm.
I believe that if it wasn't for some very, very unique circumstances in the last 2, 3 years of her life, she would never have killed anyone, ever.
Yeah.
And the same with Chris
Yeah.
Watts. What's interesting to me about that is it's potentially someone that would have been an otherwise one of everyone that would have just blended in to
Yeah.
society is maybe being seen as a little bit odd, but just perfectly socially acceptable, right?
Yeah.
Something took them from that into
Yeah.
being capable of killing, right? It's the fact that they were capable.
Yeah.
And it's even more extreme in Chris Watts's
Mm.
case because of what he did, right, to
Yeah.
his whole family,
I know.
his
I
kids.
know. I
Because
know.
I truly believe he wouldn't, if his unique circumstances hadn't occurred,
Mm. So
he
do
never
you
would have killed,
think,
right?
yeah, I agree with you, but do you think he entered into some sort of madness? I mean, yeah, obviously he did,
Yep.
but do you think there was a point that he crossed over? That because I personally think he had some sort of psychotic break, right? He
Hmm.
entered, and what, you know, psychotic break, I don't view it as, and I'm no expert, I'm just a novice with my own thinking, right? Psychotic break doesn't necessarily mean you foaming at the mouth and eyes bulging, right? Madness. It doesn't necessarily mean that, does it? It could be, like you say, a domino effect of these circumstances, one after the other, right? Bang, bang,
Hmm.
bang, that
Hmm.
take you to a point where you have this psychotic break. Do
Hmm.
you think that? Do you think,
Yes,
and I call that
absolutely.
madness? Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I
Hmm.
do you agree with me that that is what occurred with Jodi Arias, right? Because a lot of people would hate hearing that, right? But
Yeah,
she was, I hate to say this, but
yeah,
Travis Alexander was a bastard
yeah,
to her, right?
yeah. He used
He
her and
tortured
he
her.
abused her. Yeah,
He tortured her,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Hmm.
Now, that doesn't mean that Jodi Arias wasn't a bit fucking crazy, right? Or a bit she had the seeds with which to grow into
Yes,
someone that was capable of the horrendous crime that she committed, right?
yes,
So that's still
yes.
true, but it's also still true that Travis Alexander tortured her, right?
Yeah.
Like
Hmm.
deliberately tortured her.
Yeah.
And even though she had those seeds in the right circumstances, right, with the right type of weathering and
Yes.
watering, made her capable of that. But if that hadn't occurred in those last 2, 3 years, she would have just been
Yeah.
an average, slightly arrogant, full of herself
Hmm.
American 30-year-old, that not a lot of
Yeah.
people got on well with, right? That's all she would have
Yes.
been.
Yes. Just someone a bit annoying, right? Yeah.
Bit
Yeah.
annoying,
Just quite
right?
a normal person. So, this comes back to the individual, right? So she had a set of traits that were potentially ripe for being triggered, which draws me to the question. Of course she is responsible, right? I'm not minimizing that in any way, shape, or form. She is responsible for what she did, and she's doing life without parole, right? That's correct, okay? But
Mm-hmm.
what we're discussing here, this really difficult question, can
It's
any
the
of us be pushed? Can any of us be pushed to that point, right?
Well, none of us would like to say that, right? But it's probably
Exactly.
true that
Excuse
75 to
me.
90% of people, under the
Mm.
right circumstances, right, under the right memories
Horrific
of,
breeding ground, yeah? Horrific
yeah.
breeding ground.
What's particularly fascinating to me, as I say, about the Jodi Arias and the Chris Watts is that they would have been so unremarkable otherwise, which is
I
probably
know,
incredibly
I
unique,
know.
right?
Yeah, I agree with you.
Because a lot of people think that Chris Watts, if he had gotten away with it, would have ended up killing NK.
I
There's
don't
not,
think
I
so.
don't think any
Not,
chance of that.
not at all. I don't even think he knew what he was doing, to be honest with you. I think he just entered into some madness. I don't think any of it was planned. I think it was just a night of madness. I mean, nobody knows what really happened. I mean, he killed them, didn't he? He killed them and he disposed of them. But we, we don't know why. We don't know what tipped him
Well,
over the edge,
we can, with what we know, some people know more than others. We can guess, right? I think
right?
he just wanted to erase the last so many years of his life because he didn't. I don't think he actually loved Shannon for a second, right? He, uh, when he first met her, he had
Hmm.
never succeeded in getting someone that looked aesthetically as good as Shannon, right? She kind of fit a certain mold for him, and he had been so like socially awkward and lacking of that sort of fulfillment in a relationship type setting that in a sense he was just playing the part in a film role and he was just delighted to go along for the ride because he never imagined in a million years that someone he genuinely liked and felt love for and lust for like NK would be interested in him,
Yeah,
right? That concept just didn't enter his head. But of course he managed to get himself looking in a certain shape that he allured
yeah,
NK. I still don't really understand to this day what the hell NK saw in him, right? Other
right.
than the kind of physical attraction that people talk about, right? But
Yeah,
he was never interesting. He was never going to be an interesting personality, right? He's interesting to look at for us, but he, like a lot of people can't stand NK, right? I don't mind her. I think she's
yeah,
quite interesting. She's an
yeah.
interesting person.
I
She's
think
got
Chris Watts is
vitality.
interesting too.
You,
I think
you
so.
wouldn't say he had an interesting personality though, right?
I
Chris
do.
was.
I do.
Really?
Yeah,
Really?
I do. I mean, we get this image of
Tell me
him that
more.
he's just a bit dumb. But I think when he met NK, I agree with you. When he met Shanann, he was uninspired in life, right? I think his life he was an introvert. He was socially awkward. Just
He didn't
happy to
know.
go along with life. Just happy to go along with life. And when he met NK, right, something sparked between them, and she awakened, all his personality, right? She got his personality, I think, and she awakened him, not just sexually, but he really, they I think they were perhaps not in love but in lust when they first
Hmm.
met, and I think there was potential there for them to be in love. And I think
Well,
people are really uneasy about going down that path. I think yeah, that was
I
the
think part of
catalyst,
it,
wasn't it?
I think part of it was that he was unattainable. That's what made him more attractive to her, right? And because he looked a certain part, right? Because when you first meet other people and they look the part, then
Mm,
you kind of project a sort of an almost a fantasy of your ideal sort of person that they are, right? And you forgive a lot of things, and yeah, you project that they are this person you're looking for, right? Because every single person, I
yeah,
guess, is looking for the Romeo or Juliet, right?
yeah.
I just don't see him having an interesting personality at all. I
Well,
really
how do
don't.
you know? Neither of us know.
Just
It's just
from
our
well,
perception.
from what everything I've seen
I,
of
th-
him, there's a lot
I
out
think,
there of him.
I think he was very secretive. I think he was very awkward, very secretive. He lacked confidence. He lacked the confidence to be himself. And I think NK gave him that confidence, and he blossomed. Right? You see those pictures where they're on the sand dunes, and they're having their time together. There's quite a lot of photos, isn't there? And they do look, to me, they
Oh,
look
you're
like they're
right, they
falling
do.
in love. They
Yeah.
look like they're falling in love, and falling in love is when you're really into each other. And I think she, you know, I think she accepted him for who he was. That's my brief perception of it. It was a brief
Mm.
time span, right? I think she accepted him for who he was, and you know,
Mm.
that's wonderfully liberating, isn't it? You accept me for who I am. That's quite something, isn't it, to someone
I don't think
who's
she did. Honestly, I don't think she
why
did,
why
Alice. I
why
just because she didn't know who he was. She was projecting something
she
onto
was
him, and
getting to
I
know
get,
him. She was
but there
getting to
wasn't
know him,
much.
and she liked what she was getting to know. She was just
So
horrified that he killed his family, right?
I guarantee, right, if he had just done the normal thing, right, and just left Shanann, right, and went with NK,
Mm.
she was never going to stay with him. She would have got bored of him after a year, 2 years. I
Do you
promise you.
think? Do you think?
Absolutely.
Do you think this is your male perception, and mine is my
Maybe,
female perception? Because I
maybe.
think they, if he'd have just left her and done the right thing, got a divorce, I think that he would have married NK and they'd have a couple of little babies by now. That's what I think.
And you
I
think she
think
would have
she,
stayed with him, do you?
yeah, I do. Without knowing, of
That's
course, we can never
interesting.
know.
It,
I
it is
do. I
interesting that we may have different perceptions because of our genders,
absolutely.
right? That's
Yeah, but
possible.
let's explore that. Let's explore that, because I will perceive a woman. I'm a woman. I know another woman, right? You're a
Hmm.
man. You know another man better than a woman would, right? In terms of knowing a man, and what he's about and his behaviour and all
Hmm.
that sort of stuff. And ditto with me observing NK, and I think she was ripe for settling down, for finding someone, and my perception is she'd found him. She'd found him.
She thought she found him.
Or yeah, obviously, because he ended up being what,
No, I don't mean that. I
doing.
don't mean that.
She
I'm
thought
just
she
saying,
found him, and you didn't think it would last.
no,
Is
no.
that what you're saying?
No, no. I'm saying she thought she found. She was at that stage projecting that onto him. He didn't possess those traits. Now, I understand when you say he had an interesting personality,
Hmm.
right? Anyone is interesting if you can drag it out them, right? But I'm just more talking about socially and
Right,
dynamically, and even in a relationship. I just don't think he would have been interesting to anyone, right? But if you
right,
were capable of dragging out all his inner thoughts and demons and interests deep down, I don't know, plied on with amphetamines or something, right? He would be
right,
interesting, right? Because every human being
right,
is interesting in that
right.
sense. But I
Yeah,
just mean more of what he was capable of being in any type of relationship or social setting. That's just my perception of everything I've seen
fair
of
enough.
him.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
but
Mine
here's the
percep.
thing. In
Hmm.
that, he's not unique. He's not
Right. Yeah.
alone in that. There's
Hmm.
many, many people like that,
Yeah, I
I
agree
think.
with you. I
And I
agree
think
with you.
NK would have just realised that he was just another one of them. He didn't live up to her expectations down the line, I
So
think.
what were her expectations?
Of her Romeo, right? I know it's a
Hmm.
lazy term, right? But everyone's looking for their counterpart, right?
Yeah.
And he
And
looked the part, right? Because he was buffed up at that point, and there's a lot to be said that, he had a good profession. He had
yeah. Hmm.
They're all attractive things to
Yeah.
a single female at that age, and
Yeah.
he had a family. And
Right.
that, to certain types of females like NK, right? They can't help but find that attractive because it's a
Yeah.
challenge. Because he's shown also the fact that he was, to all intents and purposes, a good father, right? No one can
Oh,
deny
he
that he
was. He
looked
was
a good
doting
father.
dad. Yeah.
Okay?
Hmm.
So that would be
Yeah.
attractive to her as well, right? Because
Absolutely.
she's looking ahead,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
She wants her children and babies to be
Yes.
looked
That
after in that
of
way.
course that's appealing, isn't it? You know, to have that in the bag, to know how he is as a father. He was a doting father. I've no doubt about that. So of course I think that contributed to her thinking that she'd found the guy. But I think the essence of their relationship, I agree with what you're saying, but to me that's surface stuff, right? What I see in their relationship is two individuals who were both a little bit sort of quirky and different, right? But in different ways. But I think they recognise that in each other, and I think they absolutely clicked, and I think they were in lust, about to fall in love. That's my perception of it. I think I think she was absolutely into him, right? Into Chris, his personality, his character. You
Don't have
know,
one.
I really do, and yeah,
Sorry.
this is interesting, right? Of
It
course,
is. It is.
we'll never know. We'll never really know.
Yeah, I
But that
mean,
is my
we,
perception. I think believe they both believed that they had found one another.
he certainly did, and I agree she did.
Hmm.
As I
Yeah.
say, it was a projection from her part, right? And there's nothing bizarre about that. Everyone makes a certain projection onto like a new.
Well, we were all looking for something, aren't we? We're all looking
Yeah,
for our one ideal. And yes, I do think yeah, I agree with you in that sense that she'd found him. But I'm adding in extra, an extra layer, if you like, that
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 she knew exactly who he was. You're basically
she
saying that
liked
she knew
him.
who he really was, and
Well,
she liked it,
she
right?
liked what she knew so far, right? It was
Uh,
quite a short relationship yeah, if
hmm.
we're to believe the timeline. They were together for a few months. It's the first budding moments of a lustful relationship. But I thought there was going to be more to it. My perception is she'd found him and he'd found her, right? Which kind of makes the whole thing. Why didn't he just divorce, right? Yeah,
Well,
kind of makes it
because
even just.
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know. I don't know. I don't.
but,
It's
yeah,
just.
I think it's interesting though that that is the difference. That's where our difference is, right?
Yeah.
Just to pinpoint it is the
Yeah.
fact that you think that she truly knew him, and that was what she wanted, right? I
Right.
think that she found what she projected upon him and loved
Right.
that, but
Yeah.
she would have never found it. It would have faded, right? Because it wasn't there, and I think she just would have got bored of him. Simple as that, and moved on.
What wasn't there? What wasn't there?
The image that she projected onto him of being the kind of man that she wanted, right?
Which
That's that.
was what was the kind of man she wanted?
Um, Someone with a personality for one, right? Someone like
Right.
NK could not. She would just get bored of someone, right? That didn't excite her in that way. The All the excitement would have come from the things that I mentioned earlier, and on top of
Right.
that, the projection. But like,
Right.
I've just it's been so long since I thought about this case, right? I think it's
Yeah.
probably the same for
Mhm.
both of us, right? It just came out of
Yeah.
nowhere there.
Mhm.
But just remembering as well, like one of the points I thought was quite revealing, a lot of people think is what pushed him finally over the edge, was the fact that when Chris went over to see her not long before it all went the way it did, he found out that she was deciding that she was going to end it. And she had said that to one of her friends. Do you remember that? I don't know if that was completely confirmed, but I'm pretty sure it was.
Was it Charlotte? She
Maybe.
was. I think she was quite cagey, wasn't she? She was sort of. Yeah, I can't really recall the details of that. But yeah, was that the rumor that she was being hesitant? Um,
Yeah, she was putting the brakes on, I think,
yeah. Well,
because
I
his
thought
lack of
she wasn't
ability
putting
to.
the brakes on. I thought she wasn't putting the brakes on.
Well,
I thought she was pushing him to make a decision. I
uh,
mean, but
well,
I,
yeah, that's a good point actually. That's You're maybe right, yeah, and you maybe see that clearer as a female, right,
mhm.
than I do.
Um, we'll never know, will we? She's started a new life somewhere. I don't think she'll ever write a book. I don't think she'll ever do an interview. So we're never going to know, are we? And even if she does, how do we know that's the truth, right? We can
Oh,
only just
yeah.
have perception of it. I think they'd found one another, and that might be
Mm,
quite controversial for
I don't buy it, Alice.
shiny
I
people to
don't
hear
buy it.
stuff like that, right? But I do think that was what was going on. I do think I think she liked him. I think she liked everything about him so far, right? And then it ended horrifically, didn't it? But no, it's interesting that you have a different perception of
It
what
is.
she was
Yeah.
looking for and what she'd found
I
or
have
not
to,
found.
yeah, because I have to confess to you, right? I think something I realized about myself, right, is that I am more capable of perceiving things wrongly in females than I am in males. I know
Yes,
that as a fact, just
right,
looking through my history of my life, right? I know
right.
that. Would you feel the same way in the mirror respect that you're
O- Of
less capable of getting it wrong regarding females
um,
compared to males?
no, I'm a much better judge of females because I am a female. I know what a female is about, right? I know how a female operates. I don't know how a male operates. Yep, so I know what you're saying. Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree with you. I agree with you that you, Rabid, you will, if we're observing a relationship, right, say it could be any relationship, you're going to be able to relate, know, understand how the male works because that's your
male.
species, you're a male, and vice versa, me with a female, right? So your perception is going to be much more, I don't know if valid is the right word. I'm not trying to compete, right? But your perception will be much more key, right? Because you know what you're talking about. Yeah, because
Hmm.
you're a male, so you will know how a male operates, just as
Hmm.
I'm a female and I will know how a female operates. So
You
are
would agree
you
then that
asking me I could get it wrong with male perception? Are you
well,
saying that?
your perception of males, do you think you're more likely to get it wrong in your perception of males compared to females?
In theory, yes. In theory, yes. But I tend to.
Maybe you've overcome it. Maybe you've
I
overcome that
well, you see, I
balance,
see
that
people as
difference.
people. You see, this goes back to my own personal belief of looking at the individual. Right? I'm interested in the individual. What we're talking
So am
about,
I,
Chris
though.
Watts.
So am I.
Yeah, yeah. So
But you can't ignore the gender.
no, not at all. Not at all. I still value my perception of people and individuals rather than male or female. Though I recognise the differences, of course, men and women are different, right?
Hmm.
Right? But those differences can overlap the gender, right? If we're talking
Hmm.
about the personality, the psyche, the soul, desires, everything, right? Everything, they all
Hmm.
overlap, don't they? So when
Yeah.
I'm looking at NK and Chris Watts, I see two individuals, right? A man and a woman. I see two
Hmm.
individuals that are absolutely into each other and are about to fall in love. That is my perception, right?
Yeah. Okay. So
I'm not ignoring that he's a man and she's a woman. I'm not ignoring that, but my focus is on them as individuals.
it's kind of
It's
interesting,
it
actually,
is
because
it's two
no, no,
fascinating conversations, isn't it?
yeah. But what's interesting as well is the fact that you've kind of you've preempted and already argued against the argument I was going to make, right? Which
Right?
is that if you were like me, right, and you would share this sort of general, because it's obviously very general, right? I'm only
Mm-hmm.
making huge generalizations here. Of course,
Right.
I can get males wrong, and I can be a
Mm-hmm.
great judge of females sometimes. I think I'm a
Yeah.
great judge of Jodie Arias, right?
Yeah.
But that's a unique circumstance
I
because
think your
she's
perception
exposed. She's
is very
exposed,
deep.
right? In
Yeah.
that sense, right? So that's not a
Mm-hmm.
good example. But what I was going to say, right, is if you were like me and you erred more towards judging males less well than females, then perhaps you've got Chris Watts a little bit wrong in this perception,
Yeah.
as opposed to me getting NK wrong, right?
Right. Yes.
But you've kind of argued against it already, right? Because you're saying
Right.
you don't perceive that you have that slight bias, right, in your
I
ability to perceive.
correct.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Correct. I think my own personal perception, as we all do, right? So I'm sounding arrogant now, but I do think my perception is correct. That
Teach me the
because
way.
all we can work on is the information that we have, and in the short time they were together, I see two people about to fall in love. Of course, they're in lust with each other. They can't keep away from each other. But I just see this, the way they look at each other, the intense time they spent together. If we take the murder out of the equation, right,
Mhm.
we take the fact that he was married out of the equation. I see
Mhm.
two people who are absolutely about to fall in love. That's how I perceive it.
It's funny actually, because if you'd taken the marriage out of the equation, she would never
Yeah,
have had that opportunity, right? For two reasons, right? Number one,
right,
he never would have got himself into the shape that he did if he wasn't married to Shanann,
right,
right? It's nothing to do with Shanann herself. It was just he was just happy to be fucking married, right? To someone that looked
right.
okay and to be living this what
Well, was he
he
happy though? Was he happy?
he
Obviously
was, right?
not.
He didn't no, but in that time he thought he was happy, right?
Right,
But
yeah. Mm-hmm.
what NK unearthed was the passionate adolescent in him, right? That would always have aspired to a personality and a character
I
like NK.
disagree. I disagree.
Really?
I yeah, I think she
On what?
I think she awoke the man in him.
Well, that's kind of the same thing that I'm saying. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
when you say man, that is still birthed from the. When I say adolescent, right, I mean the
Mm-hmm.
passion. I don't mean the immaturity. I mean the kind
Right.
of
Okay.
the
All right.
passion of romance is what I'm talking about, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And primal urge. That's what I'm
Right.
referring to in
Okay.
adolescence, right? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying, right? That she brought out the man
Mm-hmm.
in him. She did. It was too deeply rooted for him that it would never have developed in the way that would have matched the excitement she was looking for, right? Once that
Right.
initial period wore off, it would have been gone. Like in regards to the marriage, right? If he hadn't been married
Yeah.
for those few years, he wouldn't
Right.
got into the shape to be aesthetically alluring to her. And
Right.
also the fact that he was married and had
Yeah.
kids, the challenge
Yeah.
of having that herself and taking him from that and having it for herself was part of the attraction.
Yeah.
If he was single at that
Mm-hmm.
point, he
Yeah.
never would have been attracted to her.
I
Never.
disagree. I
Well,
disagree.
I guess we
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. Well, let's agree to disagree. I think
He would have been a dweeb if he was still single at that point. He would have been a fat dweeb that couldn't talk to anyone.
No, I disagree with you. I think he got himself well into shape before he met NK. I think he was
Through the marriage he did.
through, well, the Thrive thing and all of that, and wanting to
Yeah.
look good for the camera and all of that stuff. Yeah, I think that was part of it, definitely. I think it was part of the image thing, but I think he also did it for himself. When he embarked on this
Mm,
renewing himself, getting into shape. I think he felt good. I think he thought, yeah, I'm going to
mm,
do
yeah.
this. I like this
Yeah,
me.
well,
I'm going to
he
do
was quite,
this.
but like I say, he was quite happy with Shanann. It's just a different type of scale to what he realized was
Yeah,
possible with NK.
yeah, I think he was
And he was
content with
content,
Shanann.
exactly. He
He
was
was
content.
content, wasn't he?
Eh, but this is the point, right? He never had
Mm-hmm.
that contentment until Shanann. And it was that contentment that made it possible for him to get himself into shape and to come
Right.
across okay to someone
Yeah.
like NK for a while.
Yeah, I disagree. What do you mean for a while?
Because my point is
When you
that she would
say
have got
for
bored of him eventually because it wasn't really there. The interest in
what wasn't really there?
personality wasn't there.
What wasn't really there? His personality. I think he had personality. I think everyone has personality. I think she,
We're talking about her perception here. I'm only talking about what would be attractive to her. I'm not saying he doesn't
right,
have a personality.
right. You
It's just a
think that she was just interested in a guy who looked good and had, you know,
he
good
fit the
daddy,
role.
doting daddy. She
He
was just
fit
sort of.
her fantasy image, yeah, and she would be
Was it a
projecting
fantasy?
more. Yeah,
Was it a
of course it is.
fantasy? I
It's
think. I think. I
Alice.
think. I think it was a reality. I think she found
Alice.
her reality.
No, but
Right.
it's always a
What's a
fantasy in the beginning.
fantasy? This is
It's
very
all
interesting. Carry on.
it's
Yeah.
always it's
Is
always
it?
it's
When
always
I fell
partly
in love,
a
when I fell
fantasy
in
in
love, I fell
initial
in
stage.
love. with my archetype, if you like. I fell in love with my dream, all right? But what I was falling in love with, yeah, yeah, in a sense, a fantasy prior to that, because I daydream about my perfect man. And when I met him and fell in love with him, he was a reality, right? And I
That's
think
because
that's,
he fit the that's because he fit the fantasy for you,
yeah,
right?
because he
He
was
lived
the
up to it.
fantasy, because he
Exactly.
was the fantasy, right? And
But
I
it was
think,
still a fantasy, right? So you're agreeing with me.
right, that that
And then it
it,
became reality.
yes. So
It
are
wouldn't have
you saying that if you fall for a fantasy, it will not be reality? Is that the point you're trying to make? That if it's a
no,
fantasy, it's will not become a reality? Because yeah, all
no.
right, Chris Watts
That's
could
not
have
what I'm
been
saying at all.
NK's fantasy. What are you saying then?
I'm saying at the beginnings of any new exciting relationship, it's
Yeah,
always an element of a fantasy in there
yes, I
because
agree
you
with you.
cannot help but project
Yeah,
that,
yeah, because
right?
it's what you're looking for. It's what you
But
want. Yes.
yes, but
Yeah.
in the good outcomes, both
Right.
people live up to that fantasy to each other to some
Correct.
degree, and then you're in love, right?
Yeah. Correct.
But my point is that
Mm,
NK would have realised that he wasn't her
right.
fantasy.
That's where we disagree then, because I think that he was her reality, right? That's,
Well,
and this is just our different perceptions. It's very
we need to put it to
interesting.
we need to put it to a vote. It might have to
Yeah.
be an anonymous vote, right? Because I don't know who would want
Yeah.
to vote this apart from you and I.
But this is what's interesting, right? Neither of us know, right? Neither of us know, okay? But we're
But we both
quite
think we know.
firm. But
We
we're
both think we
quite
know.
firm, aren't we? We're quite firm in our each of our opinions. That is
Yeah.
what's interesting about this conversation, right?
hmm Well, it's delving
Yeah,
into, and it delves into something that's beyond just Chris Watts and NK in a sense.
absolutely.
That's why true crime is
Absolutely.
interesting because it's a
Yeah,
mirror to our own lives and
absolutely.
what goes
I
on in
love it.
society.
This is what I want
Yeah.
to do. I want to peel back the layers and look at all this sort of stuff. Um, Yeah, so now we're into the realms of perception, right?
hmm
Perception.
NK
Hmm.
and Chris Watts would never have been at one.
Rabid, they already were one.
No.
And that's what makes this case so
Why did he care so much then that
bizarre.
he answer this
Hmm.
then, right? If they were
Right?
really at one with each other, right? Why did it matter so much to him that rather than just have it publicly known that he had to leave his family and be the bad
Hmm.
boy that ditched his wife, why did he give a shit about that if he was at one with NK? Why did he have to try to erase them so that he didn't
I
have to
don't
deal
know.
with that
That's what I
public
mean. I
reaction?
don't know. I don't know why he
Because they
took
weren't at
that
one.
stance. Yeah, but killing his wife and children wouldn't have made them at one, right?
No,
Would it?
no,
So why kill
exactly.
why kill them? This is what I mean. This is the curious case of Christopher Watts. That's how I view it. It is so bizarre, right? The
It
motive
is so. It's
is
still,
so
it's
bizarre.
so bizarre. And a lot of people start throwing their toys out the pram or having tantrums when anyone brings up the Chris Watts
I
case, right?
know.
But I
Yeah.
don't care about that. It's
No, I
still
don't.
interesting and it's still a
Absolutely.
mystery in so many
Absolutely. Yeah.
ways. To me, it's not so much about the kind of the hows and whys of it, of how things happen, like whether he had sex with Shanann before or
Yeah,
not,
I'm not.
right? I'm
Yeah,
not
it's
so interested
yeah.
in stuff like that,
Yeah,
you
neither
know?
am I. I'm interested in the characters, right? The characters, and for me, the characters in this case are Christopher Watts and NK, right?
hmm
And
Yeah.
I, you know,
Unfortunately, Shanann is just not interesting.
correct,
It's a tragedy what happened to her, but she is
absolutely,
not an interesting person.
not in the slightest, I'm afraid. But of course, I have the same sympathy for her and her beautiful girls as I do for anyone who's been murdered. Of course I do. But in terms of delving deep into the case, she's not interesting, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's all right to say that. For me, the dynamics of this, terrible murder, the dynamics, to know why, or even begin to figure out, what his motive was, it lies with him and NK.
Yeah. Here's another example of me perceiving and getting it wrong with a
Hmm.
female in my, because I initially saw her so differently. Shannon, really
Yeah,
did.
yeah. Do you want to elaborate?
Not really, because I am
All right.
conscious that
I know. I
it
know.
is kind of,
Me
yeah.
too. I know what you're saying, Rabid. It's, it's
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
just
I
to be
guess
respectful of it.
there's not really any need, I guess, and
There,
sometimes we can't help it, but
I know. Yeah, I think it's just to be respectful to her. I don't think it's a question that there is an argument. I will say this: there is an argument that she can't defend herself. I don't think it's about defending herself. She doesn't need to defend herself, right? People will have perceptions of you. People will have perceptions of me and of you, Rabbit, and they've got every right to that perception,
oh,
right?
I've learned that.
Just,
I've learned
just,
that.
just as I have a right to have perception of what I see and how I saw Shanann, but I'm very aware of public fierceness, isn't there? That you're either pro this or pro that. You know what I'm saying, don't you? And I
Mhm,
don't want to get involved in that. What I'm talking about is shiners, right?
mhm.
Shiners and bashers. I'm neither a shiner nor a basher or anything in between. I just have my perception of things, my opinion of things, and at this point in time, they shall remain private-ish, right? And I
Would
think
you? Yeah,
that's
that's
quite
well.
dignified. Yeah,
That's well said. I chime
yeah.
with that, right?
We're on
And
the same page. I know
we
we are.
are, we are at last. Yeah,
Yes. So here we
we have
are. Back. We had a,
we have been for most of this, right? We just differ on a very interesting aspect, right?
absolutely. The thing with you and I, Rabbit, is that we agree on so much. We're absolutely, our values, our morals, our decency, all we're absolutely on the same page. But there have been times when we've totally disagreed, right? And I think that's why
Oh,
we get on so
yeah,
well.
yeah.
You know,
We've had
we
rather
we
impassioned
argue well.
disagreements in the
Yeah,
past.
I know. They've been spectacular, haven't they, dear? But we're still good friends, aren't we?
Would
Right?
you? We are. Would you agree with me then that the Shiners
Hmm.
represent a perfect example of what we've been kind of talking about a little bit, right? In the
Hmm.
past on the few podcasts and things, right?
Yeah.
That they're a perfect example of the type of followers of true crime that
Hmm.
take offense to ever delving into
Oh,
um,
absolutely,
the actual real nuts and
absolutely.
bolts of what's going on with these
I,
characters, right?
I absolutely,
That's
yeah,
offensive to them
yeah,
and always
yeah,
will be. Not just in
yeah.
that case, right? But in any case.
Yeah,
It's
I agree with you. My opinion of that sort of mentality is, why are you even interested in true crime? Right? Why? What is your interest other than to talk about the crime? Because for me, true crime is my hobby. Right? I'm
mhm.
so interested in it. I'm so passionate about all aspects of it. That is what for me true crime is about. It is the most diabolical, the most terrifying, the most frightening, the most wrong things in human nature that fascinate me, right? I'm fascinated by all things beautiful and all things terrible. So, therefore, true crime is a subject that is, I mean, it is endless, right? It is
Mm.
endless in your pursuit to explore the human mind, the human psyche, the human soul, the human behavior, the human condition, right? So,
Yeah.
for those people that you've described, I
Mhm.
think, why are you into true crime?
I'll
You
tell you
make
why.
true crime boring, right?
I'll tell you, it is boring. I'll tell you
Mm-hmm,
exactly why it's boring, right?
mm-hmm.
Is that it's the ultimate form of virtue signaling. That's all they're
Oh,
really doing,
I know, I
right?
know.
They just want to be seen, to be a
Well
part
done,
of the victimhood. That's
well
all it
done.
is.
I know,
Yeah.
I know. All right, all right. I just want to say to them, well done. Bye bye.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Let's find people who want to have a proper conversation, proper discussion,
yeah,
proper investigation, right? Yeah,
yeah. I just don't see the
yeah.
point otherwise, really.
Exactly,
I mean,
exactly.
people have to
It's
understand that they're always going to be abstract to these personalities and all these crimes, right? You can't get
hmm
too deeply connected to these people, right? They're
I
not you.
know,
You
I
are not them.
know, I know. And it's this, of course, it's terribly sad, right? When I look at crimes and the actual victims and what's happened to them, especially if they're children, of course you want to cry. Of course you feel sad and depressed and horrified. But when you start sitting and sobbing as if you knew someone, you need to go outside, get
You
a bit
need
of
to,
fresh air.
yeah, yeah. You need to take a stroll like Young did down the forest and just spend some time contemplating things.
Go and wander
And
in the
then,
woods and sit by
yeah,
a
then,
river.
yeah, just sit within nature for a while. Go and
I
maybe
know,
talk to a few people out in the
I
real
know.
world, and
Yeah,
then you might understand that you're not them, okay?
yeah,
And it's not really right or healthy
yeah.
to try and
Healthy.
swallow
Mhm.
the kind of pain that you perceive from them and their family members, right? You want to
Yeah,
own that pain. You want it for yourself
I
because you've
know.
got pain for other reasons.
Yeah,
That's why they want to be a part of it.
I
You know,
know. And I find that unhealthy and a little bit distasteful. I think
yeah,
people need to get hold of themselves, all right? You don't know these victims, right? You express love for them that cannot possibly be, right? When you say you
cannot.
love X, Y, and Z, you don't, okay? You
Don't.
just don't. You have immense sympathy and compassion and all those feelings, right, which normal people do, but they extend it into this personal virtue signaling, right?
Yeah,
Do you
it
think it
is.
makes them feel good? Do you think it
Yes,
makes them feel good? Well,
yes,
that's what I find distasteful,
yeah,
because
I know.
what are you doing?
Yeah,
What are you doing? Get a grip, right? Stop
yeah.
sobbing.
Distasteful
Get a
is the right
tear.
word.
Get a tear for the when we see horrific news, it can be deeply moving. I understand shedding a tear in that way, but when you sit watching stuff and you're sobbing, come on, you know
Like,
go
uh,
go hmm
to give you an example, I could easily use the word that I loved John Lennon, right? But I would know I
right,
wasn't meaning that I loved John Lennon. He was just a kind of hero to me, right? I
yeah.
admired him. I wouldn't talk about John Lennon now and break down in tears at his assassination, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
understand the abstraction.
hmm Yeah, I know what you're saying. I mean, I often, I do use the word love and hate, but they're ways of expressing. I think I've said that I love Einstein. That's why I fell in love with him, because of the quotes I read out. I love Carl Gustav Jung, but it's not in that.
You're not
It's
trying to
not
own them, right?
tender. It's not. Yeah, exactly. It's not a tender expression, right? It's a description to describe my liking. That I
Yeah.
really, really like. Instead of saying really, really like, I just say I love. But I don't have that tender emotion. And you see it in true crime community, right? Don't you?
Mm,
And I will say it, particularly with Shanann, that they love her. They
mm.
love this person. No, you don't. No, you don't. You
No,
like her, you admire her, but this
they're.
is it's this expression of tender love
I mean,
that is it
what,
that is not real and that is distasteful,
and
right?
what are they loving, right? They're loving
Mm-hmm.
a victim, right? And it's the case with probably many, many cases, it's this sense of being in love with a victim. But unfortunately, just by the law of averages, the people that
Mm-hmm.
commit these crimes tend to be rather remarkable people,
Mm-hmm.
right? And there's obviously bad reasons, right?
Yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
victims, just by the law of averages, are just rather ordinary people,
Of
right?
course they are.
You're not loving them for their thoughts or ideas or anything they've really done. What you're trying to do is possess their victimhood. You want to share in that victimness, you know?
I
It's really
agree
weird
with
when you think
you.
about it.
I agree with you, Rabid. And I'm saying I agree with you because it is weird, right? It is weird. I want to say to these people, what are you doing? Right? What are you doing? Get a grip. Yeah? Get a grip.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's taking on. I will emphasize that it is distasteful because for example, if God forbid, one of my families, right, were involved in were the victim of a horrific murder, and it was high
Mm.
profile, and they had an Instagram and they had a Facebook, and people would pay their respects, okay,
Mm.
which would be perfectly acceptable and nice and sad and
Mm.
that's fine, isn't it?
Yeah,
But
that's
then
all
if you've got
understandable. Yeah.
some group that started up, starting this adoration of them, I'd put an end to it immediately because
Mm.
I find that disrespectful and distasteful. You're using you're
Yes.
using a tragedy to express something within you that is not
Yes.
relevant. Stop it.
Precisely. That's
Yeah,
precisely what's happening. And
I
that's what is
know.
kind of selfish about it, you know?
Yeah, it's very bizarre. Which adds to this case of Christopher Watts. I refer to it, I see it as the curious case of Christopher Watts because of the bizarre motive. Right, I can't work it out. I'm good at working things out, but I can't work this one out. And attached to that, this weird stuff, this virtue signaling, this false passion, this false emotion.
You can only really understand and appreciate the greatest aspects of the human condition
Mm,
if you look into the darkest, worst aspects of the human condition, and
of course,
because it's
of
all part
course.
of the same thing, the same
Yeah,
existence. It's all part of
yeah,
existence,
yeah,
and people can just
yeah,
deny it if they want to, right? But it's other people are interested in it, people that are just
yes,
have more of a natural inclination towards psychology in general. Not
hmm,
everyone's into psychology or
yeah,
contemplating these types of things, because it can
yeah,
be quite troubling to some people, I think, they don't
yeah.
want to unearth some realities that are out there.
Yeah, I think you are a certain type of, well, everyone's different, right? I lean towards um, deep thought, deep thinking, exploration. I'm not afraid, right? I'm not afraid
Mm.
to. If someone doesn't want to dig deep, fine, right? But why criticize someone who does?
Yeah.
That's what I have the issue with.
Mhm.
You do your thing, right? You do your thing, fine. Right? I don't criticize you for it. I don't criticize anyone for their way of being, really. I mean, I might be a bit flippant, of course we do. Everybody has an opinion about everything,
We can all
but
be cheeky.
yeah, exactly. A little bit cheeky here and there. That's fine, isn't it? We express our. If you're honest, you're going to express an honest opinion, and that may be positive or negative to whoever it's aimed at, right? You
Mhm.
know. But as to a specific interest, don't indicate to me I shouldn't be doing it, right? Not
Mhm.
without giving me a decent argument, or not even an argument, but giving me decent opinion to think about, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Don't
At
don't
least
just give
being,
me don't just give me tears.
yeah, yeah. Don't start crying and shouting at me, right? Give me something more, right? Fair enough. Then we can agree to disagree, and I can not mind. Someone who's putting all those tears and shouting at you, I've got every right to say, stop, stop doing that to me.
Just
Stop
don't do it
doing
in
that to
front
your,
of me.
stop doing that to yourself, right? I've got every right to. If you come at me with your tears and shouting, I'll
Mhm.
talk to anyone about anything, so long as it is talking, right?
Mm.
Fair enough, isn't it?
That's such a great line that you give there. As long as it's
Mm,
about talking, you'll
yeah,
talk to anyone.
yeah, I will. Yeah. and I'll accept anyone as they are, as long as you're mostly nice, right? Not everyone's 100% nice. No one is, right? But you know, I will accept anyone, however their way of being is, if they don't hurt anyone, and they're nice most of the time, right?
Mhm.
And that's how I operate.